And that is why there will be teachers on every discipline committee in each of the communities. We're going to set up the conversation. We have another year to go with those conversations. And that's why the point about is it going to be one system. It was not our job to say what ought to be done. It is our job to say what could be done. And so what could be done will come out. What will be done will come out in these conversations. Already the problem with 3 different states disagreeing on Common Core, if you are a teacher, what is it you do? What happens if a child leaves Anna and goes down to Kayenta? And Utah doesn't know whether it wants Common Core or not. And Arizona is having a Pearson writing their test for them. And what happens though if they leave Kayenta and come over to Shiprock, and you've got New Mexico with its tests? That's the way things are now. That's why it was better to come out. That's why we followed Mr. Denali out here. We wanted to just say this is how we saw all the things people have already said. And then we want to see what we can put on the table for what could be done in this climate. Because it is not, and then of course, people who like the Common Core don't like it now because maybe they don't like the president who support it. You know, there's that in politics, not just the structure. So we would like you to keep thinking, what would you like to see a community conversation be about? We wanted to put on the table all the things that swirl around the community when it makes decisions, so that you can say, well, maybe there's another way out besides what we hear. There was another, yes, ma'am.
I agree with the lady behind me. I have a niece who went to school at National Prep. She's an honor student. And boy, she can read to me an animal story really fluently, like she can talk it. But when she's done and I ask her a question about, tell me what you just read, she can't. And it's difficult for her, I think, for her to understand. I think we have some, even Common Core is not only controversy here in Tri-State, but also in the nations. It's a lot of work.
But that challenge of a student being able to mechanically recognize letters, put them into sentences, as opposed to having depth of thought, that's not just limited to the Tri-State too. And that's why all that needs to be on the table, so when the curriculum is written, you can say, well, it's going to have to hit this mark, and that mark, and that mark, and another. And it's going to have to deal with all of these issues that children will encounter. That, of course, is the goal of us as adults, to say, well, children will see these things, and what will happen when a child sees them. So we'd like you to keep that in mind, even if you get a good training in language, because you can get the reverse. You can get great training in Western science, but you cannot convert it to BA, understanding.
So right now, the state of New Mexico, we're going apart.
Yes, yes.
And right now, this is going to be our baseline data. And so, but right now, the whole state of New Mexico, different districts are reporting that. We're afraid that the schools that made AYP say, we're not going to make it. And here you have this document here that identifies all the schools that made AYP or not.
Yes.
So most likely, the New Mexico is not making AYP. The test is so rigorous.
This is why we gave you the document. The BIE put it together, and we're talking.
They never pointed us yet. You guys failed.
And that's why form a system, you make your own decisions. It'll be up to you to decide. It's not just how things are done, but what the outcomes ought to be. That's the point, which is why we're here. That's why we want to go to the communities and talk. We want people to know what we saw on the journey. When you talk about the journeys within, what you see in the communities. So national, regional, state, and the tribes, these are our issues as well. I'd like to go ahead then, if I can, so we can finish, and then, because we'd like to close with some sort of policy, because I was also asked about the law. Maybe it's a good way to end. In the end, this all ties back to rules and regulations, because that's always been the case. It's always been the case, no matter where you go, the rules and regulations always change. So we want to just say a couple things about how Mr. Benali suggested we think about laws, not just workbooks, laws. And what did we come up with as suggestions for policy changes? The thing that became clear is that data is the word of the day. Numbers. Numbers are what matters. And so our feasibility study, that's what we gave you the chart, showed you how all the BIE schools nationwide represent themselves. They call it their numbers. So we can begin with that. The second thing we realized is that the data from 2010, when people wrote the workbook, it's been referred to here, it may not necessarily apply to the 66 buildings that BIE manages and that are supposed to be transferred to the tribe, because changes occurred in 4 years in data collecting. The tribe in the interim has been given is it the Navajo data? What's the Navajo information system? The system that has been set up within Doty. Matt, the Navajo Information System Center, NISC, is that? And EIS, Navajo Education Information System. So that wasn't there in 2010 either. So data has been collected by the tribe, as well as by the schools, and so on. So that's another reason. The third is the new standards of instruction, and I put Common Core in parentheses. That may or may not be what is decided. And the new strategies unfolding with teacher education. Harvey is heavily involved in this as the director of the School of Special Education at our university, and he works with our state and our national organizations. Teacher education is being reinvented once again. Then, of course, there's the issue of the inclusion of the DNEG content standards. That's going to have to be part of all the conversations about instruction standards and training. There's all of that out there as well. That can't wait for later. And then those are going to need their own data sets. So what kind of numbers we can be prepared to claim, to prove the claims. Then we have to integrate the tribal data set, the NCIS, with the state and the BIE. The way to show the tribe's data helps with the accountability workbooks call for improved schools. And then finally, there's one category I didn't know about. If anyone in here can help us with, please do so. There's a category called Safe Harbor. It's being used by schools, and not just schools, in which you can report that you have made your AYP, even if you really had not hit the marks than what most people think. Is there anybody here who works with the Safe Harbor concept? Yes, sir? I will explain as best I know how it works. It started a few years ago, 2-3 years ago. And when you go to report, and in fact, when you look at the chart, the way we went into all the Navajo schools, 41% of all the Navajo schools reporting were 58 reported on that chart. 41%, 24 said they made AYP. Even though in 2010, when the data was collected for the accountability workbook, it was 10%. It was 7 of 66. We had the same iPod. You know, as my students text each other, what's with that? Well, that's why we wanted to figure out what Safe Harbor is. If you go to their website, if you type it into Google, as young people do, and read it, you are allowed to declare that you met AYP if your test scores have improved 10% from the year before. Not up to the standard of the state. 10%. So, if you had a 3% pass rate, 10% of that is 0.3%. So if you're at 3.3%, you have met AYP. You do not have to report that on that chart. All you have to do is call into the BIE and say, we met AYP under Safe Harbor. We could not get the BIE people in Albuquerque to put an asterisk after each building. They reported AYP on the numbers. They reported AYP on Safe Harbor. So we cannot say to you how many buildings right now met it, and how many buildings use safe harbor. The point about safe harbor is 10% increases, as the gentleman has said here, that could take 30 years to get a building up to the numbers that are needed. Because if you can go incrementally, just 10% over year by year, it'd be a long time in school districts, as Matt has shown in his studies, 2%, 3%, 4% pass rates. So we put those things on the table for you as well. Schools reporting how they find their information. And then our last slide here. So, what are the steps we go through? Isn't it?
Can I touch back a little bit on safe harbor?
Yes.
Safe harbor also takes a look at real and raw data, meaning the students that were enrolled in that school that whole year.
Yes.
That's real data. Raw data also includes those students that transferred in.
Yes.
That does make a big difference.
Yes. Mhm.
It affects the score, so that's also safe harbor. We only take the real data, meaning the kids that were in that school all year. We can make AYPs. Yes. We include the kids that can't come in and out. Well,
Which is why you need the real-time experiences in the community on the table with the national and state reporting requirements. But then people say that if you have a 45% rate of turnover in buildings, students, on average, is your building 45% or 10? Is your building 70%? And so on. So that's why the tribe will need to decide its own sort of data protocols. What does it mean to have high turnover, low turnover? Things like that, and reporting. So this is just what to assess in the learning. It's how to assess the operations of the building. And so that's an excellent point to keep in mind for these conversations for the next 12 months. So and that leads us in then to the point about the outreach activities. We want to have these outreach activities with the design team in all the buildings, all BT, tribal contracting grant, and BIE in the coming year, because what we are calling for is that the tribe collect its own information about strengths and weaknesses. Tell us what you think is strengths and weaknesses. And then align that with student and faculty performance, the best performing building.